Well, good evening, everybody. How are y'all doing? uh, yeah, Today was not my day. Luckily, my phone's almost at 60%, so if we really want to paint something, we can. It's just I gotta wait for a little while before my phone fully charges so we can turn it into a camera. Let's see. Is there anything we can actually watch tonight? I'm trying to see if there's anything that we can... I keep debating on doing that finally. Really? Minecraft with Mega... Alright, fine, that's stupid. I don't want the Mandela catalog. Alright, do we want to watch some analog... Okay, is there anybody actually here tonight? Or we just got lurkers? Because if we just got lurkers, I'll start playing like a video game or something. Because like I said, my phone's not charged enough to where I can trust plugging it in and streaming it. Alright. Hi, Rajanka. Okay, so we at least got a single chatter. Alright, we can watch some more 4 Plus, because he does have a video more about the I'm not sure if it's Man the Suit or another Godzilla one like that. We could actually watch some analog horror stuff. Yeah, it's analog horror, but it's like mostly made of AI. So, no. Yeah, I completely messed up. I do have like one thing. I do have a thing we can paint. It's just with the phone being dumb. put on some 4 Plus. We can at least have that playing while we figure out something to do. See, this is where I wish I had my new kit for my model stuff coming. In fact, let's see where that's at while I'm thinking about it. I want my Amazon. God, I have such a weird ass fucking recommends for Amazon. It's funny. And it's not even been shipped. Fuck. Yeah, so starting in November, we're going to start the Guardsman the Nami's Heroes Army. Or Guardsman Army. So that'll be fun. There we go. Yeah, I don't care what you say, PewDiePie. Alright, let's go look up 4 Plus. I saw they had a video about the Godzilla stuff that we hadn't watched. So let's put that on. We'll react to that for about 30 minutes, and then hopefully my phone will be charged and we can start some stuff. Or we'll just keep watching Analog Horrors tonight. I don't know. Here, I'm going to bring you over here so I can mute this. Easier. Alright, let me stop the music. God, I can tell my nose is stuffy too. Where's my blanket? Come here. Ah, yes. Watching somebody else reacting to Analog Horror. This seems like such a great idea.
I feel like I don't have to waste too much time for an intro here, since I imagine a ton of you clicked on this video as fast as humanly possible after getting a glance at the title. Well, you all guessed right, ladies and gentlemen, as we are about to re-enter the terrifying world of Godzilla Analog Horror.
Maybe.
This makes the 4th video talking about this mashup that I could never have foreseen working as well as it has been. We have the latest Man in the Suit entry to cover, and new additions into the invasion of Godzilla. I'll do my best to catch you up to speed, but if you want the full 4 Plus Godzilla experience, I'll have the previous Godzilla analog videos linked down below for you to check out. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to check out the original works to support these creators who are the ones to bring all this to life. But without further ado, let's get settled in with our protective gear and face the horrors of Analog Godzilla together.
That is a specific cosplay.
But before I let you get too far, have you been having trouble getting some shut-eye due to the horrors that we have to witness on a weekly basis? Well, this video's sponsor, Manta Sleep, may be just the thing you need. Manta Sleep makes high-quality sleep masks to fit your resting needs. These masks come with adjustable eye cups to alleviate pressure and to ensure that no light is making its way through. Complete blackout. The one that I myself have
I'm not sure if
using
anybody's...
is the Manta Sound Mask, which comes...
I don't know... Okay, so, has anybody seen the Mark Twain Adventures claymation movie? I just realized I'm asking people who are most likely in their 20s. There's a 50-50 shot you have. You've probably seen the clip where it's like, oh, what are you? An angel. What's your name? Satan. 1 second. Somebody cosplayed it, and it's a really good cosplay. Fucking sugar ants. Where the fuck are you coming from? Every time I think I found it and cleaned it up, they keep fucking appearing. Okay, 1 second. Let me switch just in case I accidentally pull up something. I just wanted the scene where he just says what he is and the kids react. Okay, I don't know how copyrighted this is, so we're going to play it really, really quick. And we're going to say we're reacting to it. Twitch.
Hello.
Who are you?
An angel.
What's your name?
Satan. I find
Yeah!
you humans quite interesting, even though you are a worthless, greedy lot.
How annoying.
That sound is...
Yeah, you have to remember this is Mark Twain's interpretation of Satan. You know, I keep crushing these damn ants. You'd think they were... Alright. Yeah, that's what it is. Let me see if I can pull it up on Twitter. Because I think it was on Twitter. Yes. Thank you, Lee! Can I see just the pictures and not the stupid... Alright. Really quick. We have this. The cosplay. What they're cosplaying. The character. The cosplayer. I didn't even notice they had that. That's adorable. That's way too much detail for that. Damn, good God. Shit, I'm covering that right now. Here, we'll do that. Shit. Alright, here. Let me minimize that. So this is the person. The Krug. It's a really good cosplay. Of course, it only really works when they're holding the mask up. If not, it's just like, oh, yeah, they're just clearly wearing a black face mask. Ooh, cute. Yeah, that is a very specific cosplay, and I love it.
To quickly catch you up to speed in case this is all new to you, the man in the suit follows the production of the original Toho Godzilla movies, except with an interesting twist. During the filming of the first movie, the actor inside the Godzilla suit found himself morphing into the creature itself, no longer becoming just a guy in a costume. Every year, it seems the studio doesn't learn from its mistakes, and continues to use this Godzilla suit man in their movies, even going so far as to use different suits for other monsters, and putting another poor soul in them. Godzilla suit man always ends up attacking the other actor, and in more cases than not, makes it to where they also fuse permanently with their monster costumes. Once we get to Mothra, they decide to go with a puppet creation rather than stuffing someone inside. However, a poor young actress still had to be put on a larvae suit. Once Godzilla Suit Man found out that Mothra was nothing but a puppet that lacked someone on the inside, he went into an all-out frenzy and beelines it for the woman in the larvae suit, attacking her and biting down on her head, instead of her body just fusing with the costume. It looks more like she became trapped in an actual larvae, and who knows what will come from that. Will she completely transform, leading to the larvae hatching out the first real created monster? Who knows?
Probably.
But all we know now is that Toho is planning on filming a new movie with King Ghidorah, and an inside man who is tired of seeing all this carnage plans on intervening in any way he can. But given the fact he was recently fired from the studio, what could he possibly do? To which we are now at the start of our latest entry. The Man in the Suit, Ghidorah Suit Incident, 1964, Entry 12. Our new entry begins in classic Man in the Suit fashion, with a trailer for Toho's next big Godzilla film, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. We learn that Toho is attempting to be a bit more cautious when filming this new project. This time, instead of Ghidorah being a full-on puppet like Mothra was, he is going to be half puppet, half suit. Their hopes are that this may confuse Godzilla Suit Man in some way. They also plan on building the suit with new material that would be resistant to heavy damage. However, these materials are censored, so we never find out what they are. This tougher material will be applied to the lower body, likely where an actual person will be inside.
Yeah.
Since the head and neck are going to be puppeteered, they are not outfitted with this tough skin. Since the incident that happened on set with Mothra, they have now decided to make the larvae puppets as well. Why they all aren't just puppets is beyond me. I suppose last time Godzilla Suit Man had a freak out when he found out no one was inside. Perhaps it's to avoid another situation like that. Then again, I say just put this damn thing down already. We then see how our hero character plans to intervene.
Oh, why are you taking off?
It looks like he plans on sneaking a shotgun onto set. He knows the risks, but knows he must be dealt with once and for all. I don't think a shotgun is enough there. Perhaps an RPG will do the trick. Apparently, the team at Toho were very confident about this plan. Only one way to find out, I guess. We're on to the last shot of the film. Due to heavy security, it sounds like Godzilla Suit Man was behaving properly, and he won't be able to take any bites out of the actor after toughening up the material. Except it sounds like Godzilla Suit Man still has some tricks up his sleeve. See, the neck and head were being puppeteered, but they still needed some support from the actor on the inside with his arms and hands, alongside a contraption inside the suit where the actor would pull a lever to open Ghidorah's mouth. Right at the end of filming, however, Godzilla Suit Man stopped moving and just began to shake violently. In a not very smart move, the Ghidorah suit actor gets too close to Godzilla Suit Man, and boy would he live to regret it.
Would bite into the head of Ghidorah.
In classic Godzilla Suit Man fashion, he bites down on Ghidorah's head. Something I forgot to mention is that in a previous entry, Godzilla Suit Man vomits this acidic blood onto the ground, and it looks like he's about to try out his new special attack. After biting down on Ghidorah's head, he begins to puke that acid blood all over the place, filling the inside of the costume. However, this is when our inside man arrives with his handy shotgun, ready to intervene. He enters the studio with his shotgun hidden inside a guitar case, but he's met with confusion from some of the staff members, asking him where he's been. He tells them that he was fired, but in a strange turn of events, they tell him that he was never fired. Then who sent him that letter in our dorsal extraction entry? Anyways, our hero barges through onto the set, but Godzilla Suit Man notices him. He stops puking his acid blood, basically boiling the poor actor alive, and turns to face the power box behind him. We then cut to found footage format, a first in our Man in the Suit series.
Yeah.
We see as presumably our hero character is running away through a very nasty part of the studio, and Godzilla Suit Man is getting close.
Somehow.
He throws the camera down, and we can hear as the shotgun goes off. A picture of a headless Godzilla Suit Man then displays on screen. Is this nightmare finally over?
No.
Well, this next picture says otherwise. Looks like Godzilla Suit Man is capable of healing himself. Isn't that just lovely? We then are met with this image that I still can't really make out. Is this the leftovers of King Ghidorah? We see as something begins moving around in the middle. Don't ask me what that is. Our final frame in this entry has us looking at a disfigured-looking Ghidorah. This theory of mine may be too outlandish, but what if that isn't the suit anymore we're looking at? What if that's the man inside, sprouting 2 extra heads beside his own? Now that sounds pretty crazy, but I unfortunately doubt that's the case. It's always a pleasure to dive back into the world of the Man in the Suit. Like I've said before when I first started watching this series, I had no idea this was the direction we'd end up going. Since a lot of the horrors in here are described to us, it just leaves us with our own disturbed imagination.
That's kind of why I don't like the fact that
an actor getting melted away inside a Ghidorah suit.
Kind of why
I can't wait to see where the series carries on from here. I'm waiting for all the monsters to get together at the end to go on the ultimate rampage. This series goes quite the different route compared to our previous one. In the Invasion of Godzilla, he's actually the giant creature that rampages the land. This world has a few different takes on the matter, however. This time, once Godzilla leaves his mark on New York, these smaller pieces started to fall off him. These pieces are capable of moving on their own and creating smaller Godzilla creatures. If that wasn't enough, his radiation was so toxic, it spread throughout the entirety of the US, and people infected with this Godzilla radiation began to also mutate into humanoid Godzilla creatures. What's happening in the background, however, is certainly bizarre as well. There are two cults that exist in relation to Godzilla. One that believes he is a god, and humanity was born from his radiated flesh many years ago. This is known as the Denver cult. Then there is our other cult, which believes in literally the exact opposite. They view Godzilla as a demon who is here to bring the Earth's extinction. Our anti-Godzilla cult plans to use some pieces of Godzilla's meat to create Mothra and Rodan in an attempt to kill Godzilla once and for all. Last we left off, a smaller Godzilla variation got taken out by this new emerged creature that is more than likely Biollante.
It is
Biollante. And a different new-looking creature comes from the sea and attacks Japan. Will our anti-Godzilla cult succeed in creating Mothra and Rodan to take out Godzilla? Only one way to find out. The Invasion of Godzilla. What has this world become? Entry 11. Our entry begins, and it looks like someone just trying to enjoy a nice canoe ride comes to encounter Godzilla himself, rising from the sea. He slowly turns and looks at our character, before heading back down. We then cut to a news report, where Monster Discovery reports that the Godzilla meat extermination operation has been a success, with over 45% of all of his radiated meat being burned away since his last attack. Also, cases of infected Godzilla people, food, and plants have begun to go down as well. Things may actually start looking up for humanity. Even the creature Biollante has been providing assistance. She has been going around and absorbing all the Godzilla meat, paying a heavy contribution to that 45%. I'm surprised the people aren't attacking her mindlessly, but it's been reported that she doesn't attack people or destroy property. However, she does grow in size every time she consumes Godzilla flesh. Our news report then shifts to the recent attack on Japan, with our creature being described as some sort of mud monster. The level of destruction caused by this thing was certainly immense. If we thought Godzilla's radiation couldn't be outmatched, it turns out this new creature was also making people sick due to this odd smoke it released whenever it flew around. Before this creature returned to the sea, it's reported that it roared for 30 minutes straight, and that Godzilla and all the mini variations roared in response, almost as if signals are being sent from one creature to another. Not only was it just Godzilla and his minions who responded, but in Argentina and New Zealand, a different loud roar was heard all the way from Antarctica.
We can hear another very loud sound coming from the Antarctica.
From the Antarctica. I'm not completely robotic voice.
If I remember correctly, that's where it's hypothesized Ghidorah is hiding out. Only a handful of people believe that Ghidorah still remains alive, but it just isn't certain. In other news, the government has tracked the real Godzilla's location, down in the North Pacific Ocean, and they are ready to fight back. We then cut to our next segment, updates on a Monster Discovery team meeting. Monster Discovery may seem like just your cool monster show, but it's really a part of the cult, and its main duty is hunting down and learning more about Godzilla. In the meeting, we hear from Samuel Carter, who was the guy originally a part of the evil Denver cult, but after a change of heart, moved on to the other one out to stop Godzilla's rampage. We learn that the Denver cult had recently attacked one of their facilities, and Mothra and Rodan are going to be up and ready a lot sooner than expected. The main point of this meeting is all about the mud monster that attacked Japan. Turns out this creature is now swimming its way towards the US. In better news, we actually find out what this mud monster actually is.
Can you explain the origin of this creature? Okay, Mr. Sam. Actually, Mothra didn't burn to death as we thought, but somehow Mothra managed to escape from her papa and find a way out of the facility. And then when it got to sea, it began to curtail meat in the sea and eat the marine animals, wood, and marine garbage.
As it turns out, it's a deformed variation of Mothra. When the Denver cult attacked, they sought to burn all of the experimental monsters that were being prepared to take on Godzilla. Mothra was able to escape this disaster, but not without some battle scars, as it's predicted her eyes were burned in the process. When Mothra escaped to the sea, she began to consume a bunch more of Godzilla leftover meat, alongside a bunch of mud and garbage. This caused her to evolve in a much different way. Mothra doesn't deserve this fate. Another interesting fact is that unlike Godzilla, who gains energy from consuming radiation, Mud Mothra gets her energy from consuming pollution and garbage. At first I thought there was only one Mothra, but apparently the one that turned into a mud monster was just a premature variation of her, so our Monster Discovery cult still has one ready to hatch and take on the challenge. Our meeting takes a quick detour to talk about Connor Kingston. For those who don't know, Connor Kingston is the only person who knows of the whereabouts of the Oxygen Destroyer, and his dad, Christopher Kingston, worked with Samuel Carter back in the day.
It's the English
and they
version's
both were part of the
characters.
discovery of Godzilla and the cults. Sam has been frequently trying to get a hold of Connor so that he can have the Oxygen Destroyer as a backup plan against Godzilla if Mothra and Rodan don't work out. His last known location was Minnesota, which concerns Sam due to how dangerous that area is at the moment. If we remember in the earlier entry, That's Not Our Neighbor, a huge attack from mutated people occurred in St. Paul. It sounds like, however, if they are unable to get Sam to cooperate willingly, they have plans to get the Oxygen Destroyer by force. But back to more info on the Denver cult. At the very beginning of this series, Godzilla attacks a cruise ship, leaving only one survivor, Ashley Parker. She somehow managed to survive the Godzilla radiation, but this led her to having some kind of ability to sense these mutant creatures, and it also sounds like she has some kind of influence over them. The Denver cult has Ashley almost as a hostage, it sounds like, and they were able to use her to make the Mud Mothra roar out loud, signaling all the other creatures to roar back in response. Their hopes were that this would lure Godzilla out as well to both kill Mud Mothra and decimate the Asia area like it did to the US. What scares Sam the most is that he believes King Ghidorah also responded to this loud roar from the Mud Mothra. The other meeting members try to tell him that King Ghidorah is extinct, but he still believes it to be out there. We then get an update on Stephanie, who just like Ashley, is able to sense these mutant signals. Stephanie was able to survive eating meat that's been contaminated by Godzilla, and it's clear now she has been able to influence the plant creature Biollante. We learn that she is no longer in the facility, but lives with her aunt in Phoenix, Arizona. But Monster Discovery still has their eyes on her. Sam then comes up with an interesting idea. He believes that since Stephanie can basically control Biollante, and it's been reported that she may also be able to control Mud Mothra as well, he no longer sees the need for their Mothra and Rodan, since they have two fully fleshed monsters already ready to go to take on Godzilla.
Yeah,
so
that's
what are we
going
going to do with Mothra and Rodan? Well, I guess that's one way to do it. But even though we have two brand new monsters up for the fight, we still need our hands on the Oxygen Destroyer. That concludes our Monster Discovery meeting, and we then shift over to a report from the Denver cult, basically reporting on their failures when it came to attacking the Monster Discovery Ran facility. Philip Denver goes through an obvious meltdown, super angry at the failings. He tells them to work harder and that they are also trying to get to Connor Kingston. They also want their hands on the Oxygen Destroyer. Denver goes on to visit Ashley, and it definitely seems like she is a hostage in this situation. She's very dismissive, and it sounds like it causes her physical harm whenever she uses her sensing abilities. We then cut to an interview from Seth Theron, who was a victim during that attack in Minnesota. He apparently lives very close to Philip Denver, and he reports seeing a big truck where 7 people wearing black robes approached Denver's house. They then proceed to bow down to him. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like this cult then tries to send a creature to Seth's house. The mutated person breaks into the house and Seth tries to hide. He loads up a gun and is face to face with this disturbing creature.
It's a Godzilla infected person.
In an interesting turn of events, the mutated person begs to be killed, to which Seth blasts the creature. At least I think this is Seth. Seth then runs outside and is met with a whole bunch more of those mutated creatures. But like the hero he is, Connor Kingston arrives with his car just in time to take out the creatures. Seth and Connor jump in the car but are attacked by yet another creature. After they deal with that, Seth asks Connor for an explanation on what is happening. Connor tells him that he needs Seth's help with killing Godzilla with the Oxygen Destroyer. What does Seth have that makes him so valuable? Connor hands Seth a tape explaining all the details about Godzilla, likely the files we watched in the 10th entry. We then see what looks to be Biollante, but it may just be a messed up tree. But out of nowhere, we see Mothra fly through and up in the air. We then see a surprise appearance from Rodan, who sprouts his wings and breaks through the barrier he was being held in. Mothra approaches the barrier and blasts a beam that shatters the cage. I have a feeling these are from Monster Discovery, and they didn't take too kindly at their attempts to bomb them. Good for them, honestly. And that's where this entry ends, with Mothra and Rodan escaping captivity and out to cause whatever mayhem they desire. It's interesting to learn a bit more about how Ashley and Stephanie are able to control these monsters. I didn't think it was possible, but apparently they do it in the movies a few times. Let's just hope Mothra and Rodan don't get into too much trouble. The Joy and Madness of Monsters, Entry 12. Our entry takes place literally right after the last one left, with Mothra blasting through her captivity. We then see as Rodan lands at an airport and quickly takes off again. As Mothra flies above the sea, Mud Mothra decides to jump into the action. Mothra and Mud Mothra begin to fight, with their beams clashing in the middle, but it looks like Mud Mothra unfortunately wins the fight. However, Rodan comes in out of nowhere, like a tag team, and picks Mothra up by its wings, which also doesn't end very well. The three of them begin to fight head-on, and it really looks like Mud Mothra is the most powerful of these beings. I may have spoken too soon, considering we see that Rodan and Mothra were successful, at least in causing some brutal damage.
Because they always have to have some kind of beam.
Is Mud Mothra truly dead is the real question. Mothra and Rodan shout in victory, before we cut to our next segment. We listen in on an interview between Scarlet and Stephanie, and it sounds like Scarlet is a therapist of some sorts. Stephanie goes on to inform us that Monster Discovery has been pressuring her non-stop to keep up the control of the monsters, and for some reason, everyone in her life is avoiding her. We also get a more in-depth full look at just how painful it is to be in control of the monsters.
Using those powers is so painful. You can hear all the horrible things from all the mutants and the painful fate of the innocent people. Sometimes, even though I don't activate it, I can still hear the voices in my head.
As it turns out, Stephanie's survival from contaminated Godzilla meat didn't keep her from having mutations, as we learn that she has spikes on her shoulders, which may be the answer as to why everyone is avoiding her. She reports that she ended up resorting to attempting to cut them off, but her aunt came in and stopped her. It's a part of her body now, so cutting those off would cause some major damage. But before she can finish her interview, a man comes in telling him they just got an emergency call from Samuel Carter. And we watch as it looks like either Stephanie or Scarlet being escorted out. But then we get met with this quick frame, and it looks like two bodies lying dead by the dumpster. I doubt this is either Stephanie or Scarlet, but who knows? Perhaps the Denver cult sent out a hit. We then return to Seth and Connor, and I'm not sure if this is Connor's house, but if it is, what is his job?
Mom, can you give me some money, please?
They head inside and basically talk about their situations and lives, bonding over shared traumatic pasts and a mutual hatred for the Denver cult. Seth takes Connor to his helicopter. These people must be rich, I tell ya. Perhaps Connor plans on dropping the Oxygen Destroyer from the helicopter. Not sure how well that'd work, however. But before we can go further, we cut back to where Mothra and Rodan were initially held by Monster Discovery, and it looks like some new monsters may have broken out of Lab C. That can't be good. But before we cut back to Seth and Connor, we get a brief newspaper frame that explains a few things. We learn that Seth sent out a tape that exposed the Denver market selling infected meat to people. Since I'm 99.9% sure that the Denver market is run by the Denver cult, that would explain why Seth was being targeted by them. We return to Seth and Connor, who are waiting in the car, but Connor begins to have a bad feeling, like something horrible is about to happen.
I have a bad feeling. I feel like there's something bad about to happen.
But before he can really explain, an explosion happens in front of them, and would you look at that? Anguirus is here, and up from above, Megaguirus as well. Biollante comes out of nowhere and begins to fight Anguirus. They know what the people want. Biollante is able to lift up Anguirus and launch him backwards,
but
Anguirus takes that pretty personally. Anguirus uses this hefty beam attack that looks to do the trick. However, Biollante fires a beam that reflects off Anguirus' back and lands a direct hit on Megaguirus. Biollante is truly the hero. We end up listening in on someone from the Denver cult talking to who I believe is Philip. He tells him that access to their bunker in San Diego has been destroyed by the monster fight we had just witnessed, and they're going to have to head to their bunker in New York instead. It also sounds like he expresses concern over the idea of Ashley turning against them and controlling the monsters to fight the cult. We then cut to a scene of one of the mutated people smashing through this random car, but then we see something really exciting. A hole that looks like it's in the Arctic, and a bright light shining from inside.
So King
I think
Ghidorah
is ready to make his appearance. Since all these other monsters are born from Godzilla's flesh, Ghidorah would be the first monster to truly be his own. But our final frame of this entry shows us a map of where Godzilla is located, and something unknown being located as well, likely Ghidorah. But then, in a shocking turn of events, we see a second marker get displayed, also being labeled as Godzilla. Is it possible that the Godzilla that caused this infection and all this mayhem isn't the real Godzilla? Maybe this new one is the fake. Who's to say? But it'll certainly be a scene to witness if those two meet face to face. It is said that Godzilla doesn't attack creatures that look like him. Maybe they will instead team up, and then we're all in trouble. Needless to say, the invasion of Godzilla continues to take the genre to new heights. It's always neat to see our monsters finally duke it out, and you can just see as the animation gets better and better as the series goes on. This is definitely a climax I'm gonna have to tune in for, with all the monsters either teaming up to fight Godzilla, or Connor actually succeeding at using the oxygen destroyer to wipe them all out. Godzilla and Analog Horror continue to be a matchup I never expected to reach the levels that it has been. However, I'm glad it's being told in different ways. I like going to the invasion of Godzilla to get my action scenes with the monsters fighting each other, and seeing the aftermath and how it all affects the people around the area. Not only do you have big monsters to worry about, but you also have to be on the lookout for infected humans.
Which is kind of loosely based off an idea they had for Shin Godzilla,
where this Godzilla suit man is capable of morphing actors into the suits they wear. It feels like it's happening in the real world, and puts a very interesting thought in your head when you rewatch the original movies. So if you haven't already, I can highly recommend you check out these Godzilla Analog Horror series, especially if you are a fan of the character and the universe. As always, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I thank you all so much for watching. I know how eager you always are for more Godzilla content. Keep leaving me recommendations, whether it be in the YouTube comments or the community Discord, where I always keep my eye on things. But if you'll excuse me, I think I just ate some infected Godzilla meat.
Really, it's not been down here. That's gonna be a short stream tonight. Alright, one more. Let's watch one more and then we'll figure out something else to do. Analog Force is it's always weird shit like that.
I've always said that the best analog horrors are those of the likes of Gemini Home Entertainment or Local 58. With those, the horrors seem to evolve through the lens of a TV station, where any unfortunate onlooker can get caught up in the nightmares being presented. They seem to be the perfect examples of what makes analog horror what it is. And it appears that this series I stumbled upon, called Arcadia TV, may be in a similar vein. created by Chilling Abyss, and just at first glance, it appears we are going to be visiting a very familiar format, with classic analog TV networks featuring a ton of frightening undertones hidden throughout.
If you want to understand analog horror,
and in this video,
it's basically
VHS. All that the first chapter has to offer us. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to check out the original series to help support the creator before swinging on over here for us to face our fears together. So without wasting too much time, let's put on our protective gear and head into this chilling abyss of Arcadia TV.
But before I let you get too far, just want to say if you're new here and enjoy what you're watching, be sure to hit all those neat buttons down below as it really helps support the channel. And if you want to see more, be sure to follow us on Instagram and Letterboxd. Alright, now you can pass through.
Deep Sea Live, Entry 1. We open up with some classic scheduled programming from Arcadia TV. Based on the title of this entry, I'm guessing we will be tuning in to Deep Sea Live that starts at 10 p.m. Perhaps I'll stay up for skywatching to get some Local 58 action. Needless to say, Deep Sea Live begins, and is this a bad time to say that I'm deathly afraid of the ocean? We are told that this will be an incredible, never-before-seen experience that will take you deep into the ocean's mysterious depths. The vessel going under the water will be traversing down a mysterious bottomless hole of unknown depths that's been referred to as the Pit. And this submersible is only being operated by one person. God, I would hate to have that job. It almost sounds like you're trapped in the world of Iron Lung. Our footage begins, and certainly enough, we are in the dark depths of the sea.
4+.
Definitely not terrifying at all.
Really?
I'm so fucking scared right now, you shut up!
The hydrophone gets activated so we can hear all the lovely sounds happening around us. First sound we catch is that of some whales. Not too stressful, at least it's recognizable. A couple minutes later, and this demon swims past the camera.
That's
a dragonfish.
Yep.
Now that's a bit more unnerving. Then almost 10 minutes later, we end up with something a bit more otherworldly. But given the little we actually know of what's in the ocean, who's to say? But all we can label this noise is just unknown. But then later on, these two glowing eyes can be seen in the vast darkness of the water. I'd quit right then and there. All we're left to describe this thing is a question mark. I wouldn't know what to make of that either, and frankly, I wouldn't be staying to find out. Our next bit of footage has us just looking at nothing so far, but we can hear what almost sounds like clanking against the vessel.
It's actually kind of
our
normal
footage ends up cutting out due to a system malfunction, and our lights and sound are now gone. Our lone operator attempts a system reboot, and the lights slowly start to flicker back on. Text appears that just says, "Recall the sub now," almost like a warning. "Please help me," then appears. I wonder what could be going on down there, but it's too dark to make anything out. Maybe there has been a rupture, and the sub is about to implode. The final bit of text just says God, before our glowing-eyed creature decides to make a return. To end off this entry, we're met with just a technical difficulties screen. I bet whoever witnessed this live isn't going to bed anytime soon.
Yep.
Who knows what exactly happened there, but if I had to guess, that weird fish creature could have attacked the vessel and caused some damage, causing our person inside to panic and call out for the vessel to be brought back to shore. And either his message isn't received or something malfunctioned that led to his nightmarish demise. See, if this was me, I wouldn't have been in this situation to begin with, because I can't even handle the Finding Nemo ride at Disneyland. Mythical Creatures, Entry 2. This entry starts off with a warning message that I can only imagine is meant to scar whatever child is watching. While you may have been told by your parents that monsters aren't real, the truth is that they do exist and can cause harm. Lovely. If you or someone you know has recently come into contact with an unusual entity, please notify your local authorities immediately. What kind of unusual entities are we talking about here? Perhaps our mysterious fish counts as one of them. The televised program we are met with today is Midnight Safety Guide, and this episode is all about mythical creatures. We learn that in recent years, there has been a growing number of anomalous entities that have been documented, and mythical creatures are a recent addition. It's said that they can manifest in various forms, but their more common appearance is more humanoid, reported to only appear at night while concealing themselves behind closed doors or obscured windows. Sounds like every kid's nightmare coming to life. It's said that they will try to gain your attention, but keeping still and quiet may get them to leave. Keyword may. However, if you do engage, they become aware of your identity. We're then shown what looks to be an example of a mythical creature encounter. It appears we are in someone's bedroom, and it almost sounds like something is tapping on the door, which increasingly gets more aggressive. And whoever is filming makes the fatal mistake of asking who is there, engaging with the entity. We then learn that they sometimes offer desirable gifts, but it's integral you don't accept, even if they become more hostile. And we learn that over time, their physical form will warp and decay. Back to our bedroom footage, the door slowly opens up, and we can hear a faint whisper in the distance. It's then said that the creature will vanish if you survive for 30 days. I question what the survival rate on these encounters are. Once they vanish, they leave behind a strange marking that is supposed to resemble the creature's name. Turns out there has only been 3 instances of individuals surviving the entire 30 days. These mythical creatures are on a killing spree. Once back to our bedroom, the door opens all the way, and nothing can be seen from the dark hallway. But not for long. Our camera person screams and we cut to black, only to then be met with text that says, "And now you know." So it seems like this world we are living in has been overrun by these strange entities that are out tormenting people, whether it be from the deep sea or the comfort of your bedroom.
Well, that's
and they don't leave very
sure.
many survivors. It's unclear if the creature from the ocean and the mythical ones hiding in people's homes have any sort of connection, but I have a sneaking suspicion.
It's analog horror. It doesn't have a connection.
We also don't know exactly what type of mythical creatures these are. The image we see at the bottom of the text looks like a fairy, and the creature at the end of this tape looked to be some kind of weird face. At the end of the day, I'm not so sure if I exactly want to find out what these creatures are.
But you will.
Arcadia Apology, Entry 3. This entry is rather short, and serves almost as an apology video from Arcadia TV in reference to the incident that was captured during Deep Sea Live. We are deeply sorry for the delay in our response to the recent incident on Deep Sea Live. We understand that many viewers were frightened by what they saw, and we sincerely apologize for any distress that was caused. They then go on to give a rather interesting explanation on what exactly happened in that entry. The incident was the result of a rogue employee who played a prank on our viewers. Needless to say, that guy was fired. But I'm also not buying into the idea that this was just a prank. They basically go on with your basic apology mumbo-jumbo and hope we continue to watch and enjoy the program. But then something strange seems to take over the broadcast at the end. This is just the beginning, and there is more to come. That's not ominous at all. Does this mean more strange creatures will be headed our way? Because if so, the world may end up looking like the end of that Hellboy remake. The Crying Cave.
Which
Entry
one?
4. We open up, and it looks like just a frame from our recognizable scheduled programming from Arcadia TV, except something strange gets highlighted in the background. It looks like something falling from the sky. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but that almost looked like a flailing body. Would you look at that? A body was found on July 19th near some area that's been censored out. On the body was a video camera and a folded missing persons poster that shows 3 teenagers, last seen on July 17th entering the cave. Oddly enough, according to our text, these 3 had never been reported missing. Sarah and Daniel were found safe with their families, and Jack Miller doesn't even exist. We're then brought to July 18th, 1988. If I had to guess, we're about to find out how our mysterious character seemingly fell from the sky.
Dude, we're falling right out of the sky!
Given the noise that can be heard, I have a feeling we're in the Crying Cave. He slowly makes his way through this cavern, and our poor soul seems to be trying to play hero and find these missing people. I don't know how long I could be in this cave with all these monster noises. We then hear what sounds to be a cry for help, and our character starts to race towards the noise. He ends up coming across what looks to be a deep hole in the ground, with a light emitting from the bottom. I think I know where this is going. In a not-so-shocking turn of events, he ends up slipping and falling through the hole, and we once again see that frame from the start. And in the background, he's falling from the sky. Given the fact that this missing person's report seems to be completely false, and one of them doesn't even exist, I think it's safe to assume this cave acts as some kind of universe-jumping phenomenon. I know that's kind of a jump, but what other explanation is there? Clearly this guy got the poster from somewhere, He heads into the cave, falls through a hole that strangely places him way into the air, to which once he lands, he finds himself in an alternate universe where these kids were never missing. And if alternate universes are being brought into the mix, I think it's safe to assume where all these mythical creatures and anomalous entities are coming from. The Signal, Entry 5.
They're coming from...
This entry completely changes the game here, folks.
Yeah.
We learn that this tape is a reconstruction of events that transpired at Research Station Bravo in the Arctic from 1980 to 1983. I didn't mention it, but in the tape Mythical Creatures, there's a brief frame where we get the date, December 27th, 1992, and the Crying Cave takes place in 1988. So this entry takes us to the earliest in the timeline. Perhaps some answers are hidden around the corner. We're introduced to Dr. John Walker.
It's going backwards.
And he developed the first machine capable of sending and receiving signals from outside our universe. Now would you look at that? It states that in theory, if a signal is sent out, the other parallel universes should send out a signal at the same time. It reminds me of that one tape in VHS Viral. Granted, it's not a good movie, and the tape ends with the weird dick monsters. But nonetheless, our main character builds a machine that acts as a doorway into a parallel world. And when the doors open, he finds an exact copy of himself who also created the other end of the pathway. I imagine Dr. Walker's theory works in a similar way, as he wants to establish contact with a parallel universe.
We
see as the system boots up, and it looks like we are looking at our universe, being represented as this white dot, sending out a signal in an attempt to reach any neighboring realities. A second dot ends up appearing down below, sending out its own signal. A connection is established, and they begin to communicate with one another.
Yeah,
we learn that after a few days of communicating, a 3-image test is conducted. This test involves the parallel world sending an image of nature, a dog, and one of themselves. I imagine in an attempt to make sure that they aren't talking to anything too obscene and monstrous. We see the picture of nature, which appears normal, the dog, which also appears normal, and themselves. And if I'm being honest, it looks like a normal person. All clear if you ask me. Since this universe passes the test, actually traveling between universes was proposed. When we return to the map, we see a third signal get sent out, a brand new universe, this one being a bit more distant. The connection gets established and communication begins, albeit with a bit more glitches. The communication seems normal at first. It does take this other world a second to respond, but they eventually get back to us. They ask if we are human. The exchanges are referred to as bizarre, so they are quick to conduct a 3-image test. The first image, once again, is of nature, and it looks rather odd, but just like a burned down forest. When we see a dog, it's a little hard to make out. It almost looks like a mutilated corpse, but once we get to themselves, the picture is full-on distorted, resulting in communication being immediately terminated. It takes 3 years of cooperation with our world and what is being called PW1, aka Parallel World 1, to finally complete the machine that would allow the universes to connect. The day arrives and we can see as the connection line begins to connect the gap between the 2 points. However, in an unexpected turn of events, that second world begins to intercept the connection. We try to immediately cut off the process, but it seems that once it's been set in motion, nothing can be done.
It's already in motion. Well, put it out of motion!
We get a big warning message that there has been a system damage, but the connection has already been completed. And when one last signal gets sent out, we see a whole bunch of other universes surrounding ours. Then the message "We see you" gets repeated endlessly, with one final message just saying, "The doors to your world are open." This entry was really good. I love the depiction of us communicating between worlds and how sinister it would be to see an unwanted, malicious universe breaking into ours. Looks like we got an explanation on how these insane anomalous entities started to appear out of nowhere. Now that's what I would call a multiverse of madness. Interference, Entry 6. Our entry begins with yet another scheduled programming guide, except this time from North Alaskan News. Looks like the morning news is about to start. We don't get to see the news considering the channel changes, and we cut to something from Atom Laboratories, looking beyond the stars. Atom Laboratories was the place that was conducting those multiversal communication experiments. We skip channels again to see Fear of the Unknown, the forest. But once again, we don't stay for very long as we flip back to the Arcadia TV channel to see some nice background video of a fire. However, our TV watcher is still not satisfied and flips the channel yet again back to the North Alaskan News. And we read a report talking about an explosion in the Arctic. A late-night explosion in northern Alaska sent shockwaves through the region, with hundreds reportedly feeling and hearing the blast. Did a nuke go off? The explosion was so strong that it caused windows to shatter and doors to rattle for hundreds of miles. This is really sounding like a nuke went off at the top of Alaska. The explosion has also caused a widespread television interference in the region. Some have even reported seeing a face in the static of their televisions. Our screen begins to glitch out, and a little smiley face decides to show up. Looks like a friendly guy. However, text begins to appear that just says, "Hello world. You do not realize the consequences of your actions. We will not interfere with what is coming. We will not help. This is not a warning. This is your death sentence. We will watch you suffer." Our North Alaskan news returns and tells us the explosion occurred at Atom Laboratories. Then our entry ends. So it definitely seems like the pieces of this puzzle are starting to come together. Atom Laboratories got a little too ambitious with their parallel universe communication, and now we have an unwanted world mingling with ours. I imagine something in that experiment caused the explosion. Perhaps it's an explosion containing all those bizarre creatures that we end up seeing around. Something interesting to note is that the first parallel world that we discovered opened up the dialogue with "Hello World," unlike the second one, which appeared to be the malicious universe. Maybe Parallel World 1 isn't as friendly as we initially thought. Maybe they let all this happen. Emergency Broadcast System, Entry 7. The last entry we will be covering today, and the end of Chapter 1 of Arcadia TV. We start off just like the title says, with an emergency broadcast system blaring on our screens. Turns out the US government is issuing a mandatory evacuation order for the entire northern region of Alaska. Anyone in that area needs to get out and head south ASAP. We are told to avoid any unusual persons or objects we may encounter, likely from an alternate universe. We are shown a map of the state and it lists off the specific areas we need to be away from. Here's where things get a bit more sinister. You have 72 hours to evacuate. If you do not evacuate, you will be considered hostile and may be shot. The 72-hour timer comes up on screen, and the countdown begins. Better get to packing. Then our entry ends. That, ladies and gentlemen, was Chapter 1 of Arcadia TV. It seems like the current plan is to send everyone out of northern Alaska to try to make it easier to deal with these anomalous entities. As long as they don't get the evacuation memo, northern Alaska will soon only be populated with otherworldly people or beings. I imagine our man in the crying cave looking for the missing kids counts as someone who accidentally stumbled into this world. How that happened to him is yet to be clear. I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoyed what I've seen so far of Arcadia TV. It almost comes off as one-off tapes in the first 4 entries, but once we get the reveal of the multiversal signals and Atom Laboratories, everything starts to connect and make sense. All I know so far is that there is some rogue parallel universes that came into contact with ours, and a whole bunch of mayhem is looking to come our way, likely in the second chapter. I am 100% going to be covering the next part of this series. I gotta know what will happen once the 72 hours are up. Are they gonna bomb the entire area? Are they gonna try and put our out-of-universe people back to where they came from? Who's to say just yet? I really enjoyed the whole story of this series so far, and the creativity with the parallel world communication was really interesting to see. This really took me back to those classics like Local 58 and Gemini Home Entertainment, just that old analog style horror that feels truly authentic to the times. If you haven't already, I highly recommend you check this one out for yourself, and be on the lookout for when I cover the next chapter sometime soon. I'm gonna have to get back to this as soon as I can. But on that note, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to keep leaving me recommendations down below, whether it be in the YouTube comments or the community Discord where my happy face is always watching. But if you'll excuse me, I have 72 hours to get the hell out of town.
Alright, what do we want to do? One more? Yeah, what the hell, one more. I got nothing else better to do tonight. I was gonna paint, but phone's finally charged.
If possible.
If you see another person who looks like you, run away and hide.
I can't see the slide.
Tell your children goodbye, and do whatever you need to do before the end.
Yeah, get to it.
You want to know what mythical story always really freaked me out when I was little?
No.
Well, I'll tell you anyways. Medusa. I don't know why it left me feeling unnerved when I first heard about the story. This lady with snakes for hair, and any type of eye contact will leave you turned to stone. Obviously, once I got older and actually got to know the true story, my fears lessened, as it's actually quite the tragic tale. But it seems like these days you don't really hear about this character anymore. In fact, the only time I believe I've seen her brought to life in film would be in VHS 99, where she appears to torment a group of teenagers and punish them for being, well, you know how the characters are in the VHS series.
Shower time. Finally, bro, my balls were about to discover a new shade of blue.
Why do I bring up Medusa, you may be asking? Well, this analog horror series I stumbled upon seems to involve some similarities. Stone Cold.
Stone Cold Creamy Cream.
I'm not too sure what to make of this analog horror just yet, but all I know is that there is something called the Medusa virus, and eye contact with infected individuals is something you're going to want to avoid. Stone Cold was created by the channel Mythical Films, and if you haven't already, be sure to check out the original series before joining me on covering this journey. So let's not waste any more time, and get right into this potential nightmare.
But before I let you get too far, just wanted to say
Stone Cold,
if you're what you're watching, be sure to hit all those neat buttons down below, as it really helps support the channel. And if you want to see
I was
more,
waiting for
be
them
sure
to make a
follow
Stone Cold
Scream on
joke.
Letterboxd. Alright, now you can pass through.
Stone Cold, Entry 1. Our series begins with some various clips from older footage. Right off the bat, we get a very brief distortion on the footage, blacking out everybody's eyes. It doesn't take long, however, for an emergency broadcast to take over, specifically at the request of the White House. Must be something very important.
I come to make an announcement. Shadow the Hedgehog, motherfucker.
We learn that there have been multiple reports of these things called demon eyes, and it's already taken its fair share of lives. Due to this, it really seems like they have resorted to straight up executing whoever is contaminated.
With severe losses among our ranks, we have resorted to cleansing the contaminated of our country.
During the broadcast, we quickly cut away and see as a couple people are being pulled away on stretchers, likely victims of those demon eyes. As of this moment, it's been labeled the Medusa virus, and you guessed it, you contract it by making direct eye contact with someone who is infected.
The Medusa virus is spread through direct, sustained eye contact with the infected persons.
Since this appears to be a brand new disease, no tests have been done yet in efforts to cure or even understand the virus at large. Seems like that'd be top priority, wouldn't you think? So what can we do as citizens? Well, it sounds like we have to refrain from using telephone.
I had a joke I was gonna do, and then I was like, oh shit, I don't remember the thing is, so I can control it better.
Unless
what I was gonna do, I was gonna go.
It said to not use the phones to call for help if you are literally about to be killed by an infected person. I feel like that counts as an emergency. Anyways, we are then told to lock all doors, blind all windows, and stay inside. If you manage to find yourself close by to someone infected, just look down and move along. So it sounds like infected parties aren't necessarily violent, but it's just incredibly easy to also get infected if you even glance at them. Basically, we're just going to have to avoid any and all human interaction. Something interesting to note is that our narrator says to not attempt to blind yourself. I mean, I understand why you wouldn't want to do that, but would that also not keep you safe? We're then brought to the varying stages of the Medusa virus. It sounds like if you are infected, you go through all the stages rather quickly, until you get to the final stage, which sounds like the virus's endgame. Stage 1 is contamination through eye contact. At this point, the eyes and the area surrounding will start to swell, and pupils will expand abnormally large. If you aren't paying close attention to people around you, it sounds easy to miss. However, not all hope is lost. As it said, if you are in this stage of the infection, removing your eyeballs surgically will halt the virus. I thought we heard earlier that blinding ourselves wasn't an option. I suppose stabbing your eyes out and getting them surgically removed are two different ways to go about it. But if these stages are as quick as they say, I don't think anyone would have time to run to the hospital before it's too late. Stage 2 is muscle loss. This leaves the infected permanently blind in the eyes, and this will also result in extreme pain and near paralysis. At this point, all bets are off, and a potential cure is no longer an option. Stage 3 is the final stage. It takes only 35 seconds once this stage is reached to achieve full paralysis from the head down. And it's reported that all the infected do is angle their heads towards people and make quiet whimpering sounds. It did say earlier not to attempt to help these people, and our next slide tells us that studies believe these to be calls for help. However, you still should stay far away. It's also speculated that patients will hear what is wrong with me today? It's also speculated that patients will hear loud voices in their head, and before paralysis strikes, will start screaming very loudly. In certain cases, the eyeballs will actually explode. To end off this entry, our narrator seems to go off script a little bit and ends us off on quite the grim message.
As we speculate, there is no long-term solution or returning to normal life. Tell your children goodbye, and do whatever you need to do before the end. This is the final goodbye.
This is the final goodbye, he says. I mean, given what we learned about this virus already, I'd say it's bound to spread like an absolute wildfire. Our only options are to stay indoors and just avoid people. Sounds like a dream come true if I'm being honest. Redolence. Entry 2. The first thing we see in this entry is through a security camera from a couple houses. Everything seems normal until you see in the distance someone strolling along the sidewalk. Are they infected? Who knows, but it's very dangerous to be out like that. We are then brought to a report from the National Virology Lab, and we learn that these reports were submitted by a Dr. Engler, which is quite a scary name for a doctor. We then cut to some POV footage of someone walking along the road. Is this our character we saw in the very beginning? Who's to say, but we quickly come back to the reports. Turns out we may have been misinformed about a couple of things. The cause for the eyeball swelling up is actually due to the virus moving through the bloodstream, traveling towards the brain and face. We then return to our walking character, who seems to be moving at a bit of a slower pace than before. Back to Dr. Engler, and we learn a little bit more about this infection. It's believed that eye contact with infected activates something within the amygdala, which is basically the brain's
trying to go
emotional
Age of Sleep
processing
here?
unit, seemingly activating a fight or flight response as it's sensing a threat. This, in some way, shape, or form, is allowing the virus to enter the body without the immune system noticing. I mean, if it's going through the eyes. Our immune system doesn't know about those guys anyway. He later describes the corpses they will be doing tests on as frozen.
Okay, that's not...
Sounds like this virus literally has Medusa-like effects. You contract it through eye contact, and then freeze up...
Okay, so... The immune system is aware of the eyes. In fact, there is actually special immune cells for your eyes. It's just, there's a few different pathologists. Roanoke Games, he talks about this a little bit if you've watched any of his videos, because there's another video he covered that has infection through the eyes. For the most part, the eyes aren't immune, it's a wives' tale.
In paralysis. So perhaps our walking character isn't infected, unless there's still something we don't know about. Speaking of our walking character, we return to them for a little bit as they continue on their journey, but Dr. Engler has more to report. What he has to report is basically the fact that they are continually having trouble finding anything out about this virus. It seems like we know as much as these scientists do, which isn't frightening at all. When we get to his next report, we actually get an update. It's not a very hopeful one, but it's an update. Turns out there has been a new mutation of this virus, one that's lighter than the previous strain and has evolved to transmit through the air. Humanity is definitely doomed if that's the case. The virus also seems to have a mind of its own, as it can basically go wherever it wants. It's in full control of the direction it floats. We quickly cut away from our report as it sounds like another doctor in the room accidentally inhales the gas.
Symptoms are not confirmed to be the same.
Dr. Engler, I've inhaled it. The seal wasn't gas-proof.
Our next segment takes us to another emergency alert. We have to update the public on this new airborne mutation. Now we also have to keep our air vents closed, so we're just supposed to suffocate from within our homes. The only good thing, I suppose, is that this airborne virus isn't necessarily invisible, but it can be seen as a thick orange gas. At least we know what to avoid then. Luckily, it also sounds like the government is going to provide special AC units that can filter out this gas, so we won't have to suffocate from inside. We're told once again to keep doors, windows, and now vents locked. However, once it gets to what we have to do when we're outdoors, it doesn't sound very good.
Suffer.
We end up getting some actual tips besides just suffocating, and that's to quickly head indoors while covering your eyes and face. Hopefully you know where you're going. If you end up inhaling the gas, it will basically give you feelings of nostalgia and you will lose self-control. Interestingly enough, infected individuals will perpetually smell the gas and will walk aimlessly towards the scent, which oddly enough smells like pie and cake. You're basically a cartoon character following the trails of a delicious apple pie, except instead of apple pie, you are met with a deadly disease. This gives us an answer as to our mysterious character who did nothing but walk along. He's definitely infected with this new strain. It's also said victims may be stuck replaying sad memories in their heads. So basically, if you inhale some of the gas, you will be forced to keep walking through more of the gas until you have gotten enough in your system to be infected with the first variant of the Medusa virus, which, you know, freezes you up and makes your eyes explode. We then return to our original walking character, who is now in the middle of nowhere, and in the distance we can hear what sounds like someone crying. Is this our main character crying, or someone else? It did say that you will replay a bunch of sad memories, so this may be why they are stuck crying. Our character then stops moving altogether, like fully succumbing to infection and becoming paralyzed, just when we thought this virus couldn't get any worse. It's interesting how this whole series seems to be focusing on just the existence of this virus. If something like this were to happen in real life, there would be no hope at all. At first, all you had to do was avoid eye contact, so going outside was at least possible, but risky. Now it acts in the form of some thick gas that has full control of where it wants to go, so even if you're inside, you aren't fully safe. Sirens in the Sky, Entry 3. Our entry begins with a video presented by the FBI, the fundamentals of double-action revolver shooting. This seems to be a video teaching you about how to shoot birds out of the sky, but these flocks are referred to as being infected. Are you telling me the birds have now contracted this virus? At this point, we're told our weapon of choice when dealing with larger infected birds is a shotgun. We're gonna have a bunch of crazy people shooting shotguns directly into the sky at this point. It's said that this infection causes the birds to scream abnormally, and this scream creates strange sound waves that drives whoever hears it absolutely insane, almost hypnotizing the person to go outside to silence the sound. However, doing so puts you at risk of inhaling the gas. Luckily, we cut away before they almost straight up play us the sound. Whose idea was that? Unfortunately, the censorship of the audio fails, and when we watch the footage, we hear all the screaming. Sounds like we have a birdemic on our hands. Interrupting our footage is yet another emergency broadcast from the White House, informing the public about the fact the Medusa virus can now infect any type of bird. Now it's said to lock our doors and literally throw away the key. This makes sense, honestly, because as we have learned, hearing the sound the birds make will make you instinctually run outside. Hearing it will activate the flight or fight I typed flight or flight. Hearing the sound will activate the flight or fight response, and you will basically be out of control, making you run outside to try to eliminate the threat. And then wouldn't you know it, you've inhaled the dangerous gas. Our footage ends up cutting out abruptly, and we are met with cryptic messages. Lock yourself in before the angels take you. Your screams will be drowned by the sound of the sirens in the sky. Losing control of your body and mind is immediate. Ignore the vultures cleaning meat off the bones of the dead. To end off this entry, we get a brief message narrated by a little girl, really showing what life must be like in this borderline apocalyptic scenario.
One must really learn to live fast. I miss the sky and grass outside. I'm missing my friend who looks into the wrong eye. I can't see the sky anymore.
Something interesting to note is that these birds are referred to as the sirens in the sky. For those unaware, sirens are another creature in Greek mythology, like Medusa. Sirens, as most people imagine, are evil mermaids, who produce a song so beautiful that the men who hear it become entranced, wanting to continually go closer and closer to the song, to which they are then killed. How they kill people is pretty up in the air. Either sailors jump off their boats and drown, or they are so enthralled by the music, they stay with the sirens until they rot away from starvation. However, they weren't always depicted as these half-women, half-fish creatures, but come to find out, back before that time, they were actually depicted as half-women, half-bird creatures.
Yep.
You see the connections? Now, it's obviously unclear if these birds are legit sirens, but the way they operate truly match that of the depictions they had back in Greek mythology. And given the name of the channel being Mythical Films, I don't think this is too much of a stretch to draw parallels between the two. Who knows? Maybe some supernatural force is at play here, whose abilities oddly match that of those in ancient mythos. Nice to Eat You, Entry 4. This entry is definitely quite different than the ones we previously saw. We begin with more security footage outside this random home. until we cut to inside and take a more cinematic approach. We see off a newspaper that there has been a nationwide food shortage, which makes sense considering no one can leave their house for any reason at this point. We also see as someone sits at their desk typing away at their computer. However, they get a desktop notification that motion has been detected outside the door. Turns out this whole segment is animated. I honestly thought this was live action until we got a closer look at our character. He gets up and begins to head towards the front door, hopefully with no plans to open it. He ends up actually opening the door to look around outside, which was incredibly foolish given the situation at hand here. He comes back inside, and it certainly sounds like he isn't alone anymore.
Yeah, you opened it during a pandemic. What did you expect was going to happen?
His phone rings, and we end up cutting to this conversation between Bill and Martin. Bill is calling to inform him about the food shortages. It sounds like even the food has now been contaminated. Humanity is definitely over. Bill also lets him know that the government is getting extra strict on telephone usage, probably due to everyone trying to make phone calls all at once.
Yeah.
Something to note is that our first entry had us in the late 90s, and in this entry, it seems like we are brought right to the modern day. How humanity has lasted this long at this point is beyond me. Our character, now known as Martin, goes back to his computer and sees he got an email from Bill, linking an article related to the food shortages. Something interesting we can see is another article off to the side, telling us that our Dr. Angler has just died in the hospital. Poor guy. We also learn how the virus is affecting the food. Officials from the English police have confirmed many sightings of a strange black sludge, which seems to limit crop lifespan, and it's unclear if it's even safe to touch. We now also know that this virus is worldwide now, with reports of people resorting to cannibalism in Thailand. Great, now it's a zombie outbreak. However, we are quickly interrupted by the security system, alerting of someone breaking in through a window. Martin quickly runs out to his living room, but nothing seems to be there. He ends up checking another end of his house, and sure enough, we have an infected break-in.
Jump scare.
At this point, it looks like Martin has already made the mistake of making eye contact, and there's nothing for him left to do but face the virus. Interestingly enough, however, this variant of the infected seems to actually be aggressive, as he lunges towards Martin, seemingly killing him. Something I really like here is that even though it's animated, the environments are still pretty realistic looking. Sure, the guy's movements are clearly 3D animated, but the way the shots are set up shows our creator knows a good bit of shot composition and how to make this whole segment cinematic, even keeping our character frequently in the dark so that it doesn't take us out of the moment to see a clearly CGI'd human. This tape was also a nice change of pace, taking us into the house of an actual person trying to survive through this global pandemic. You can get that sense of isolation as the world surrounding us is just empty at this point. Cold Shoulder, final entry. We're brought to a different character this time, someone sitting on the couch watching their cartoons, probably a child. The cartoons end up getting interrupted by our favorite emergency broadcast system. The broadcast begins and we find out we are still trying to get a cure or vaccine in working order, and over 3/4 of the world's population has been infected already. We're facing extinction at any moment. We then hear from a new doctor, and wouldn't you know it, a new strain has been discovered with a whole new set of symptoms.
Yay!
This time, it's described as a cold sensation that can be felt around the neck and the chest area, as if someone threatening is standing right behind you. However, this time, paralysis occurs much slower than the previous strain. This could be the strain of infected that was on our intruder, who attacked Martin in the last entry. We then hear a different narrator come from the TV, with some even more bad news.
As per recent discoveries conducted by drainage professionals, the Medusa virus has found its way into our ventilation and drainage.
The Medusa virus gas has now managed to travel through our drainage systems, and those fancy new AC units the government provided are no luck anymore, as it can also get through those now. What's frightening about this message is that there are moments where even the narrator knows there is nothing some of these people can do, except just wait until the virus gets in and kills them. And all Our Lady on the broadcast can do is just apologize to those who can't be helped.
If a thick orange gas seems to steam from any drainage, be sure to cover your mouth and tell your children goodbye. I'm sorry.
We end up cutting to a different area of the house, and we see as it appears like someone just standing still, likely already infected and frozen stiff. We can then hear those muffled cries coming from the infected. And in a frightening turn of events, we get our first head-on look at an infected. with the eyeballs already exploded, leaving nothing but black voids in their place. Is this our person who was watching the TV in the beginning? Seems like they were already dead when we started. I really like how in this tape we are presented with the emergency broadcast system in a different fashion. Instead of us just watching it head on, we get a more outside look at the interruption taking over the TV, and the mere fact that so many people may be just dead on the couch already is very unnerving. Well, there you have it, folks. That was the finale of Stone Cold. This isn't the end of the series as a whole just yet, however, as there are 2 more videos a part of a sequel series called Stone Cold Zero, but that will have to be covered another day. I gotta say, I really enjoyed Stone Cold. I like how this world honestly has no hope within it, and I kinda think there has to be something otherworldly at play here. The fact that this virus acts exactly like a real-life Medusa, and the fact that the birds act just like sirens, makes me believe that there is something outside of our comprehension going on. It would explain how any effort to construct a cure is just met with failure, as there is literally nothing that can be done to combat this pandemic, and that any time it seems like scientists come up with a way to slow down the virus, it quickly is able to overcome the obstacle and make matters even worse. This world that's been created is just so full of dread, and you can watch as humanity is very quickly being wiped off the face of the earth. As the days go on, this virus just becomes more and more threatening, to the point where it seems like all we can do is accept the fact that we are doomed. Obviously, we don't know if humanity manages to prevail, as we still have Stone Cold Zero as a continuation. This series honestly reminded me of the Smile tapes we covered not so long ago, a mysterious virus seemingly unbeatable taking the streets, and threatening humanity as a species. So if you haven't already, I can definitely recommend you give Stone Cold a shot. That'll be about it for this video. If you made it all the way to the end, I thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to keep leaving me recommendations down below, whether it be in the YouTube comments or the community Discord, where I always stay on high alert. But if you'll excuse me, I gotta follow wherever this pie smell is coming from.
Alright, what do we want to do? One more so we can do the horror I can't handle? Or... what the hell? One more. See, I don't mind reacting to like the analog horror stuff, because it's like we can always just use this as an excuse to go watch this stuff.
The strongest aspect of analog horror has to be its ability to truly strike you at your personal core, making you feel like your personal space is actively being invaded. Just the mere act of viewing the content poses a threat to your safety. To be fair, that sense of looking over your shoulder can come from all sorts of horror and thriller content, but analog horror is really the one to hit the nail when it comes to making it feel right at home. This is one of the main reasons why analog horror content like Greylock and Vita Carnis were so intensely frightening. In each series, it was a major point that the creatures could very easily get into your homes undetected, and from the glimpses I've seen of Basewood County, this one is all about it. You guys sent me some recommendations for this series, so by all means, I'm very excited to check this one out. However, if we end up with wet shorts and endless nightmares, don't be looking at me. Basewood County Humanoid Alert. Entry 1. At 2:26 in the morning, the emergency broadcast system is activated by local Basewood County authorities to issue a warning involving a humanoid creature that has invaded the area. As of this moment, there has already been 11 murders. 11 murders seems like a lot before going public. Any contact with this creature is likely to result in the loss of limbs, including straight-up decapitation, but they also partake in neck stabbings as well.
The victim's bodies show decapitation, absence of arms and hands due to amputation, stabbing in the neck. It is clear that there is a hostile creature around you and you should do the following. Close your doors and windows. Grab any weapon. Hide in your basement or the attic.
After being given our instructions, the characteristics of these creatures are then listed on screen. We learn that they are tall with long limbs, fingers, and neck. Not to mention an unnatural face, menacing eyes, and they're smiling. It also says they have short brown hair, so I guess we won't have any blonde attackers. To help us further keep our safety intact from these monsters, we are shown 5 police sketches drawn based on eyewitness accounts. These people are incredibly lucky, as it seems the likelihood of surviving an encounter with one of these things are far to none. The first 3 figures seem pretty normal, but 4 and 5 are where it starts to get unsettling. Is it strange that I find image 5 scarier than image 4? Following the images, we are presented with actual footage being provided. Are these those eyewitness encounters? Because I don't think I said I'm ready yet. What gets presented to us at first is just this "have you seen this face" poster stuck up on a tree. The quality makes it pretty much impossible to read out what it typed out at the bottom, but the face alone is something I would not want to see walking alone at night. The camera pans directly downwards to a sewer grate where we hear a deep guttural growl coming from below. Yeah, I probably won't be sleeping tonight. The next piece of footage we get comes straight from inside the victim's home. This is the kind of stuff I was talking about, where it gets a bit too personal for my liking. Our poor victim stands in their empty dark hallway, where ominous laughter can be heard from the void. Unfortunately, once the humanoid figure reveals himself, our character doesn't stand much chance. It appears the creature takes control of the camera to show off his handiwork. According to officials, what was found in the basement of the home was just this image here. Pardon my incredibly rough translation, the quality makes this one quite difficult. In summary, this reads to us that this creature is going to kill everyone in the family, and it's going to cut them up into many pieces, and that it looks like a human. This looks to be from a very long time ago, ancient even, I'd say. Perhaps this creature has been around for a lot longer than this county previously believed.
Probably.
The next piece of footage we get isn't anything less frightening, as we are back at home and we are unfortunately not alone. As our cameraman is filming, it appears that he is already aware of a presence, as it seems he is trying to keep himself hidden. This image might be telling enough of our victim's fate.
Yep.
It appears this series is truly going deep into analog horror's traditional roots. Whilst I see the argument that emergency broadcast systems and humanoid creatures are becoming a bit gimmicky and oversaturated when used in analog horror, there's a reason that this is so frequently seen throughout. It's just so damn scary. It's the idea of something being so frightening with so little. It's why Image 5 is arguably scarier than Image 4. Image 5 looks more human than Image 4, but less human than normal. The threat response in the brain gets triggered because there's an underlying intensity building in what should look more familiar than the actual monster-looking image. I have a sneaking suspicion the horrors inflicted on Basewood County are far, far from over.
But before we get too far, just wanted to say if you enjoy what you're watching and want to see more, be sure to hit all those neat buttons down below, including the subscribe and bell notification, as it truly helps us out, as we are slowly but surely on our way to the 100K mark. I'll have social links in the description for the Instagram and Letterboxd if you'd like to check those out as well. But alright, now you can pass through.
Detective Jeff Alberson's Tapes, 1998. Entry 2. While investigating one of the victim's homes, Detective Jeff Alberson discovered a series of tapes recorded by the homeowner. On these tapes is said to be recordings from the victim's bedroom before the break-in. We then learn that our character, Detective Jeff Alberson, was the head guy in charge of these tapes, as he was the one who initially collected them, therefore having them named after him. Along with the recordings, police also found a sketchbook that belonged to the same victim. To then we are so pleasantly provided with the contents inside. The initial sketches seem normal at first, but it's once we get to this one right here where things start to get intense. However, back at the Basewood County Police Department, it seems the detective decides to show us one of the tapes he has collected at the scene. The tape begins with our victim driving down the road. Once they return home, however, it's very clear that there's something else in the house with them. At around 3 a.m., it looks as if in-house security cameras detected something at one of the windows. Looks like someone wants inside. Not too long after peeking through the window, the creature successfully makes its way into the home to stand over the victim. The last thing we see is the creature from the sketchbook staring directly back at us. Identity test. Entry 3. This entry begins on a clip from an old film before, in classic analog fashion, we get this nightmare.
And return to your provincial university. And if I...
We then go on to view a tape that is prohibited by county law for us to view, but my guess is we are going to be viewing it anyway.
Yep.
This looks like an identity test put together to potentially assist people in catching one of these figures. If its intention is to assist, then why is it prohibited to watch? Straight out of the fear assessment, we are shown a series of images to discern if the person looks normal or not. Our first 3 pass the normal check, but our 4th doesn't fare so well. The next section oddly gets worse, as we are then asked what we think this face looks like, and then we're presented with our options. After a figure turns and shows his face, we are met with repeated text that reads, "I will tell you what your mind cannot comprehend." After all that craziness, we are met with just this unsettling image, where at the last frame switches to this nightmare. What comes next appears to be a recording of some sort of transformation, as if the creature is evolving to the next stage. Or could it be that this was once a normal human, who under unfortunate circumstances transformed into one of the creatures that prey at night? You can also see the year is 2002, so a little bit more ahead than our previous entries. The footage we are presented with next truly rocked me to my core. This took the "your mind will create something worse" to a whole new level. I wasn't sure if a face was going to come flinging from behind the curtain, but honestly, getting the censor bar was worse, because it just meant what I'd conjured up was what it actually looked like. This feeling didn't last too long, however, as this was another one of those guess the faces, and our options are soon shown at the bottom. This next section we go into takes the series into a whole new direction, and our story takes a bit of a twist. We get met with text that just reads, "The failure of Jeff Alberson," before we then get a nice little illustration of our character. What could possibly have happened with the detective? We cut back to more footage taken from 2002, and it appears to be looking at some of Jeff's documents spread across the table. The first paper on the desk is hard to make out. It appears to be a classified document where we see the illustration of the detective next to another, more sinister looking image. The next paper on the desk tells us about a humanoid creature that lures its victims in with its voice. So not only is it humanoid, but it can take the voices of other people. The third paper has this frightening drawing where it just says "it's staring at me," written big to the side. There's also something written at the bottom here, and all I could really make out was, "What does it look like?" at the top, and then "What do I look like?" at the bottom, alongside "Who are you?" which is very difficult to see and read. We look over all the documents once more before it seems a visitor decides to join in.
Oh no,
is it
not
possible
the detective.
that was the detective? Who's to say for sure, but the next piece of footage takes us to what appears to be in someone's house. Perhaps another one of Alberson's tapes being played. Yeah, I would just end it all right then and there if I saw that in my window. The next bit of text we get tells us something beyond what I was ever expecting. So according to this, out in the middle of the woods somewhere is a chamber where all of these creatures are coming from, and said chamber acts as a doorway into another realm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was certainly not what I was expecting. After we get that bomb of information, we are met with footage of this guy sitting, seemingly watching something on a screen. We zoom out to see that it looks like someone is actually watching him on a screen. The camera glitches out a bit and appears to alert the man that someone is watching. But right after we get met with this sketch. Is this what happened to the man after the attack, or was this his attacker? Unfortunately, the fear does not give us a break, as this next scene yet again almost sent me backwards. Just a face in the dark and a whisper to get such a fear reaction. Horror at its finest. It's not quite clear where this next piece of footage takes place, but my guess is we are back in another victim's house. This time, however, we peek around the corner to see what looks more like an alien creature staring off to the side.
See, that
As
is
expected,
more...
our alien soon turns around to give us a good front view of this horrific design. This entry was full of juicy lore and info on the world and the ever-developing story. But there was something small at the beginning that may contain clues to a bigger picture. Right at the start, we are presented with a clip from this old movie. Well, this isn't just a random throwaway scene from just any old film. It's 1959's The Scapegoat, which just a simple gloss over the synopsis made me do a little eyebrow raise. A man is tricked into trading places with a look-alike with murderous plans. This right here leads me to believe that Jeff Alberson might have an alternate running around doing dastardly deeds. It's likely Jeff had already been killed by one of the creatures, to which they assumed his form to go continue on. This entry isn't about an identity test. but about revealing identity theft. The Chamber, Entry 4. It looks like we might finally be getting answers as to what exactly this chamber is, and perhaps where it could have come from.
Honestly, you could make an analog horror based off of like some
could possibly be imagined, with Mr. Calvin Basewood himself discovering the place in 1868. In his diary, it reads that the place looked like something from the future, and that not a single other person knew of its existence. Without even knowing who could have built it, Calvin Basewood heads inside and reports finding humans, except there was something off about all of them. Said to have shown no emotion and no response. He also says they had unnatural limbs, and it looked as if tree roots were growing out of their backs. Sounds exactly like all the creatures that had been attacking people in the county years later. Once the creatures inside started to become hostile, Calvin managed to escape, to which he then named the place the Chamber. After getting that story, we are met with this image, where all it says is, "I will wear your skins as a suit."
And of course they're using disturbed, like reverted, like music that you get from...
The process starts to become more clear once we get this missing poster for Andy Stevens. The next couple images shown are of Andy Stevens after his transformation. So here lies the question. Was Andy a regular human who got turned into one of the humanoid creatures? Or was Andy swapped out with a humanoid figure who took on his likeness? Things are starting to point to the second option there, it seems. After all of that is covered, we are introduced to a little new plot thread. According to reports, in 1996, a group from Philadelphia came down to investigate all the missing cases piling up in Basewood. Apparently the group managed to find the chamber and filmed everything they saw. The footage starts out on a familiar missing poster for Andy Stevens, before panning around and showing us what looks to be the entrance to the chamber. The crew begins to peek in through glass and grates to try and capture anything they can find from the outside. All that can be made out, however, is music coming from deep within.
They're gonna be a face.
The group ends up entering the chamber, and from this point, it appears we get illustrations of what they saw upon going inside. On the immediate right side of the chamber lies this man with the top of his head cut off, and his arms held out. It also looks as if his left side had just been completely ripped open. The photos behind him on the wall lead me to believe that this might just be the real Andy Stevens. The next illustration we see is of the left side of the chamber, where it appears just to be a little screen and a creepy doll sitting next to it. In front of the screen lies a tape, however. That tape, as it turns out, is actually the identity test tape we saw earlier in the series. Is this a video they play on repeat to the victim to drive them mad? It could also be a tape for the humanoids to help them know what humans look out for. Might be a stretch, but who knows? We then get to see a close-up of a little note stuck above the screen that just reads, "I will tell you what your mind cannot comprehend." A repeated phrase in the series I believe will be coming back strong later.
Yep.
Progressing further on, the left side, we see a clock table said to have human remains and a skull all littered on top of it. A corpse of a woman is also found where her eyes were missing and her mouth lacked all her teeth. It's also said her skin looked as if it was melting like wax. We then get an illustration of the roots coming out of the back of the body. Well, half of the body. The next bit of footage we get looks to be back outside the chamber, out in the woods. It doesn't sound like anything is out there, and I can't see anything either.
Could be based off the
Perhaps they
doppelganger
sense
mess.
something I don't. After the footage ends, we get photos of what eventually ended up being out there. We then learn that out of 7 people who went on this expedition, only 2 made it out alive. Presented to us afterwards is a whole illustrated map of the chamber, seeing a top-down view of the left and right sides of this chamber and all the horrors found within. After viewing at the front entrance, we are then met with the place these creatures supposedly came from, the window. We quickly cut away from the illustrations and move to a tape that I'm going to say was created by a humanoid. We are introduced to this doctor character who goes on to say he will explain to us details about the human anatomy, all the while faces appear for a quick second in and out. From the sounds of it, this might actually be a video played to the victims that wind up in a very unfortunate predicament. an explanation process as to how in the following moments a humanoid is going to take control. So this is leading me to think that they take control of a host instead of taking their likeness and acting as a copy. But everything else points to a copy, so I'm just going to stick with that for right now. He goes on to describe this core that gets created in the body as a way for them to control you. But then he goes on to say that the brains of humans and humanoids are different. What I believe is real or not is truly getting tested at this moment. After he lists the characteristics of the humanoids that had been previously described to us, it looks as if we will get to bear witness to a humanoid transformation. Interestingly enough, as the stages go on, the more normalish the figure looks.
So yeah, it's doppelgangers.
It then tells us that it takes time for them to reform their faces to look like ours, so it is a copy pretty much. We are then shown all the stages at once, with the last stage being the same image that was telling us it would wear our skins. Very disturbing indeed. Basewood County Killer, Entry 5. This entry begins and we are immediately getting warned of a suspected murderer roaming around the county.
All residents of Basewood County must stay alert for a suspected murderer. Close any entrance to your house and grab a firearm.
We are then shown a sketch of the suspect, and to be honest, looks like a humanoid to me.
Yep.
After looking at that face for too long, we listen in on a Radio Basewood emergency broadcast, warning all the residents of the serial killer out on the loose. However, the man on the radio goes on to tell us that witnesses describe the perpetrator as not a normal human being. It's said as well that sometimes they don't even kill the victims, they just tie them up and leave them there. This isn't normal humanoid behavior, it seems. Originally, they aren't known for toying with the prey, they go right for the ripping of limbs off, but not this sort of actual serial killer behavior. Not only are the humanoids all out for blood, but there are different divisions with different sinister motives. At the end of the recording, we are presented with the last known recording of the killer off of CCTV cameras. This is straight up one of those Ring doorbell nightmares.
Yep.
Text appears that just says keep running as we are presented with more footage. It isn't clear why the event we are watching is being filmed. Perhaps our camera person felt something was up and decided to film for safety. Too bad it didn't seem to help in the long run.
Gonna be a face.
After running into a serial killer, we are then shown an illustration of what looks to be the victim all tied up. It also looks as if they were completely wrapped around so that they would slowly die of suffocation. The last bit of footage we see here isn't too clear, but at first glance to me it looked like a headless body. But it looks like it could be a multitude of things. This county has already had enough trouble, and now they have this new maniac to take care of. Before you sleep, informational tape, final entry. This entry begins and all we are met with is text saying, "I feel like my soul is being dragged into that place. A parasite taking over my mind. I can't sleep anymore. I am going insane." So it sounds like these humanoids are able to somehow lure these people to the chamber to then go through the swapping process. Apparently this sort of thing was happening to a bunch of other people as well across Basewood County, as they had to make an informational tape on how to get better sleep, instead of being truthful and saying there's a chamber hypnotizing you to give up your life. However, the tape does go on to say it will give us methods on how to keep a spiritual distance between us and then something else that is censored. After this, however, the entry begins to take its dark turn.
This tape will give you methods to have a healthy sleep and make a spiritual distance between you and me.
If I wasn't awake before, I most certainly am now.
Oh no.
We are quick at getting back to our informational tape, thank God, just telling us when the correct times to go to bed are. but we are then also told to look at the clock and to make sure it's ticking. Why would the clock be stopped? We get another cut-in, except this time it just appears to be an empty room. However, not for long. Back to the informational video, things look a little different. We are told to sleep, bury our consciousness, and let them in. Then, right before our very eyes, we see this victim in bed go through a transformation, and in the next frame shows something pretty eye-opening. I don't know about you, but it looks like this thing just sprouted out the top of his head. This just solidified my current theory as to where this series is headed. My guess is that the humanoids originated as some sort of alien parasite that managed to find its way to Earth. Granted, the chamber doesn't look very alien-like, but Calvin Basewood did describe it as something out of the future. So maybe he saw something the group didn't, or did and didn't film. From the way Andy Stevens' body was found in the chamber, he too had the top of his head completely opened up. And that wound would make a lot more sense if that's where these creatures were coming from. Burrowing away inside the body and creating a core that allows them to begin controlling the host, to which then after, they can burst out of the host's head and start to take on the shape. I believe this had to have been what happened to Detective Jeff Alberson. What an excellent twist on the doppelganger trend that has been associated with analog horror since its inception. I'm sure the stories behind Basewood County are far from over, as this last entry was uploaded about 3 weeks ago, so it seems like we got some more content on the way. This analog horror series really went back to the roots of the genre, yet added enough twists and turns to make it a unique experience from the rest. I really felt like the story was progressing with each entry, and it was never trying to tackle something too over the top where the immersion gets lost. Throughout its entirety, it was able to maintain my interest and the intense feeling of constantly being under threat, taking the dangers and bringing them right into your home against something you stand no chance against. Basewood County just continued to show that there is plenty of room left with an analog horror to keep it fresh and disturbing, and I just love to see all the ways people are able to craft and tell their stories. Its blend of live footage with the creature design was also a pleasant surprise, as no matter what way the story was being told in, whether live footage or text, it constantly had me on edge, yet eager to learn more about what these humanoids truly were. Be sure to check out Dark Minds' channel, as there's way more analog horror stuff over there than just Basewood County, and it all looks really interesting to check out. I'll have it linked down below, so be sure to check that out as well. But that about does it for this video. Be sure to keep filling the comments up with requests, as that's where I get most of my ideas from, but other than that, if you enjoyed the video, please give it the good old like, and be sure to hit that subscribe and bell notification to be a part of each new video. I thoroughly enjoyed this analog horror series, and can't wait to see what comes next.
Alright. I don't really have much planned for tonight, so I think we're just going to do a short stream, so... Let's see, who are we going to go raid? Let's go do Poisoned Pocky. We haven't said hi to her in a bit. Alright. Alright, we will be back tomorrow with a Blue Twitch stream. And then probably gonna try and do another horror movie night before the end of the month. We will see. I hope you all get a good rest, and I hope you all get a good evening. I'm gonna get this raid cooking. Oh. Subscriber only chat. Oh, it's probably subscriber only. Alright. I hope you all get a good evening. I hope you all get rest. I'll see you all later. Bye, my lovelies.